guys, welcome back to another week of Mortgage Matters in Minutes. I'm your host, Brent Rasmussen, and today we are going to speaking about it's closing day and being prepared and planned for that closing day, because obviously one of the most exciting days that you might have as an individual is closing on your first house. After lending for more than 20 years, closing day to some of us in the business is the exciting time when people get their keys and they get to move in and everything is joyous because that's what they've been working so hard for the past, month, 2, 3, 6, however long it's taken them to get to this point. So we bring this up today because we've had a few clients lately that are unsure about what to expect at closing, plan for, and mainly time frame of with work schedules and what's going to happen. So closing day is generally chosen by the buyer. Not always. It depends on if the seller is looking to build a house. Sometimes they might not want to close for 3 months, 2 months, something like that. But you do know the closing day well in advance. So if you do have a work issue or schedule, when you're working on writing that offer, you want to make sure and work with your realtor and the seller's realtor to make sure that everybody's in agreement, because sometimes what we see is people agree to an offer and we ask them, hey, when's closing date set? And they say, I don't know. I wasn't made aware of when closing actually is. So that is something that you do write in the purchase agreement when you're putting an offer in a house, what the closing date is. And generally a closing, when you go for closing, it only takes 30 to 45 minutes. So I know some people are nervous that it could take a long time. They take off a whole day of work. Honestly, you can go in over your lunch hour. It doesn't take that long. There is lots of forms to sign. But we're here today to help give you some information to plan and be prepared for closing day. Obviously, at closing, it is the legal consummation when the lender and the borrower agree to certain rules, and those rules are laid out in front of you. The escrow closer is the person that usually goes over the final forms with you, and they generally summarize those forms with you. There could be anywhere from 50 to 80 forms generally, and if you don't have a lot of questions, which generally the escrow closer does these type of closings every day times 5. So they're going to give you a great summary of what you're signing, why you're signing it, and that should get you enough information that you need to move forward. Some people feel the need to read every single page. If that is the case and that is you would want to ask for the closing documents in advance to read them all, because in essence, no document can be changed when you get to closing. They're all standardized documents that basically every mortgage lender in the country is going to use. There's nothing that's made up. There's no separate agreements that they have on a certain type of loan or not. So if you show up at closing, it's really just a matter of how fast or how quickly can you sign through the forms that obligate you to the lender, and the lender obligates themselves to you. So that's really what's happening at closing. It can go as quick as, again, 30 minutes. I've seen closings take 15 minutes if they just sign their name and don't even care about any summarization. But I've seen closings go 3 hours. So the other part of planning for closing is what you need to bring to closing. And before you even get to that closing table, you want to make sure and try to review your closing disclosure, which again is going to have all the legal numbers and monies that are being charged to you for different particular closing costs or down payment or sales price, earnest deposit. The closing disclosure or the closing statement is going to have all of the numbers. So it's great to go over with your lender those final numbers before closing, because when you get to closing then, there shouldn't be anything out of the ordinary that is there to be unexpected. You should know what the closing costs are, your down payment, the total payment you're going to be having, the rate that you locked in, things like that. So if you get a chance to review the closing disclosure before closing, it makes closing go that much quicker, especially if you're at a tight time constraint or you're maybe taking off an hour or 2 at work and you have a schedule that doesn't allow for as much time to be gone. The closing usually happens at the real estate agent's office or the title company. Sometimes we do closings at the lender's office. That isn't as common as usually at the realtor's office is generally where closing transpires here locally. But the two main items you want to make sure you bring to closing are a picture ID form from either the state, like your driver's license, or maybe your passport to prove your identification with a picture, and or the monies that you need for the down payment, closing costs, prepaids. That is a cashier's check. I know a lot of people would advise people to wire. We don't like wiring money just because there's a lot of fraud that can happen and wiring it to the wrong spot. There's been lots and lots of information put out there, and many buyers just aren't aware that there's people that impersonate maybe a title company, maybe a realtor, maybe the lender. At the last minute, they would say, "Hey, wire the money to this particular bank account and this number." And if you do that, you wire that money, it might be to some foreign entity, and the money's gone forever. So we always tell people to bring a cashier's check in and make sure you're handing it over to the title closer with maybe your realtor present and the loan officer present to make sure it's the legitimate company and transaction versus you wiring money to some place that it never comes back. Really, that's about all it takes. Most time I tell people at closing, bring your ID, bring your cashier's check, plan for 30 to 45 minutes, and we'll go through the documents. If you have lots of questions about what you're agreeing to, obviously we can summarize those for you, and the closer can as well. But if you want to read every line, go ahead and contact your lender early, let them know, and make a plan for that closing date. Know in advance when that date is on your schedule and work with your realtor to get that on the schedule. So hopefully today you learned a little bit about closing, what it takes, the time frame that might be, and what you might need to bring in for closing, so that way you're prepared for saving yourself the most amount of time to get into that home, move that day, and enjoy your new home. So again, we're here always to answer any questions. You can reach us at 402-991-5153. Or you can check us out online at mtg-specialist.com, and we're always just a click or a phone call away to help with anything that you may need. Have a great day. Mortgage Specialists. Driven, trusted, reliable.